Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Geek-Minded Fools. My name's Graham.
And I'm Scott.
We'll kick off, as usual, with a visit to Scott in the monkey farm.
Hey, partners, it's time to see what Scott's doing down on his monkey farm.
Hello, sir. Welcome, as always, to the monkey farm.
Thanking you.
What have I got for you this week? I've got some exciting, marvelly Civil War news.
Oh.
I've got some Tom Cruise news!
Cruise news!
Cruise news! I have no idea why I delivered that like that, but it sounds good.
And Cruise News is not getting a fucking jingle.
No, definitely not. And I've got some otherworldly alien news.
Oh, okay.
I don't know why my voice went all wobbly there. I've got some otherworldly alien news. Right, let's start at the top. The Civil War trailer's dropped.
It has.
You have seen.
I have seen.
You like?
I like you, Lottie.
I like you, Lottie. I love the beatdown with
Yes.
Bucky, Cap and Iron Man.
Iron Man, yeah,
looks
very good.
Although there's one little bit where Stark looks like he's got a really badly done black eye.
Black eye, I know, it's weird, wasn't it?
Why have you got that? Have
sort
you,
of no swelling at all,
it's
just
like,
badly made up.
Someone's put a bit of makeup on you, Tony.
Indeed.
Maybe that's like a little subplot. Maybe he's cross-dressing or something like that.
The line, sorry Tony, but he's my friend, and well, I thought I was too, was awesome before that SmackDown.
It was
brilliant.
really good. It was very good.
Did like that. And obviously, seemingly, the whole thing, of course, the comic was about a superhero team killing civilians, and this simply seems to be about Winter Soldier, and therefore the Winter Soldier is the whole reason for the registration, and obviously William Hurt's involvement.
As Thunderbolt Ross.
Yes, indeed.
So let's see where this goes from here. But I like the idea that they're using Bucky as their kind of jump-off point.
Yes, indeed.
I think it's going to be bloody awesome.
I think it looks
I'm really
great.
excited.
Yeah.
Now, am I wrong in thinking that this is going to be a two-parter?
You are wrong in thinking
So it's
that, yes.
it's the next one after that, isn't
Yes,
it?
the Avengers Infinity War will be the two-parter.
That's right.
Yes.
I am very excited for Civil War, I must say. More excited, I think, than I was for Age of Ultron.
Right, cool.
I'm intrigued to see what they're going to do, bringing Spidey in, and I'm genuinely very excited.
I wasn't sure whether, as I was watching it, I was thinking, are they going to tease us with a peek of Spider-Man? But obviously they're keeping their powder very dry on that one. So
They certainly are. So yes, that's hit now. If you haven't seen it, guys, go and watch the Civil War trailer, because it's bloody good.
Yep.
Cruise news! I quite like Tom Cruise. I don't hate him. Okay?
As an actor, I think he's perfectly good, and I enjoy the vast majority of his films.
Yeah.
As a person, because of obviously the Scientology bit, he's a bit of a Burke.
He is a bit of a Burke, isn't
but
he?
as long as he's on-screen stuff is okay, I'll forgive that.
We'll forgive him.
Kind
We'll forgive him his R. Ron Hubbardness. Is it R. Ron?
L.
Ron.
Ron
Who's
Hubbard?
R. Ron Hubbard?
No one.
No one, is he? I've
That's
mixed
his
him.
brother.
Yeah, it must be.
Ron
Who's-
Hubbard.
Who's the guy who does Game of Thrones? Oh, that's R.R. Martin, isn't it?
Yes.
Or have I that's not even his name. I don't watch that. I don't watch that anyway, so it doesn't bother me. Anyway, Cruise news is that he looks like he's going to be the, whether he'll be the protagonist or antagonist in the upcoming The Mummy reboot.
Yes, indeed.
So obviously,
Yes,
you know,
I read.
the perfect choice to go after Brendan Fraser, California Man. Do we need more of these remakes? I know I always say this, and around about the time they come out, I'm like, I'm really excited about this now. I like to always be the pessimist until the last minute, I think. The only thing that worries me about this is it looks like it's going to be a modern day setting for The Mummy.
Yes.
And do you know, there is one reason and one reason alone that I've brought this bit of news to the table today.
Go on.
Just so I can say, show me The Mummy!
Hey! Very good.
I'll move on.
Very good.
I'll move on very quickly. Ridley Scott has released the...
Ridley Scott?
Yeah, that there, Ridley Scott. Ridley Scott did do a bread advert, didn't he?
He did Hovis.
A Hovis advert.
Yes.
Which had, what's his name? Mr. Rottweiler in it out of Bottom. The bald guy. Brian... What's his name? He was in American Wealth as well.
Brian...
Is it Brian Glover?
Glover, yes.
Yeah, that's what I always...
One for the teenagers there.
I couldn't bring myself to interrupt you there. It was just so beautifully unsettling. So, the next instalment in his prequel trilogy to Alien has been named, and it's Alien Covenant. I don't know what to think about that. I really don't know.
Because originally, it was Prometheus 2, then it was Alien Paradise Lost or something, wasn't it?
That can go fuck itself.
Yes.
That really can. So, this is the second in the prequel trilogy.
Yes. And it's of course because of this that sadly Neil Blomkamp's Alien sequel
has
been
burner,
shelved temporarily, or potentially permanently, depending if they can then get him back onto it.
I hope they can, because
I
really like the idea of him sticking his finger in the alien pie, if you know what I mean.
And I also read, and I'm not sure how much this could be true, but there was a rumour that in Blomkamp's film he wanted to bring back Newt as a character.
It was going to be it was going to centre around her, wasn't it, the whole film?
Because, of course, the thing was, he was effectively saying that 3 and 4 never happened, and so he's continuing on from James Cameron's Aliens.
Yeah, because we certainly don't need anything like the last one, Prometheus. I really hope Alien Covenant is a little bit better. I mean, if you're one of those people, like me, who watched Prometheus and just wanted to repeatedly smack his head against the wall, then you will be obviously quite wary of the next instalment. But as I always say, we'll wait and see.
Indeed.
We shall wait and see. With that in mind as well, I was talking about things being shelved.
Yes.
I've just heard as well that the Fant 4-stick sequel has now been surreptitiously removed.
It has.
From the
unsurprisingly.
It was supposed to be a July 2017 slot, but now it's been moved to an unspecified date. And I think when they say unspecified, they mean let's never fucking make it. And rightly so.
Let's bury this fucker now.
One thing I would like to see, because I have slagged this film off, a lot.
And rightly
so. But I would like to see if there is a version out there that Trank put together.
A director's cut.
Because I'd like to see what his
I
original
don't think
vision was.
Fox could ever step down and allow that to happen.
No,
otherwise it will be admitting that it was their interference that fucked it up. So I can't see that ever being on the card, sadly.
No, I think you are 110% right, sir. And that, really, sir, is the news this week.
This is the news.
Do you have anything to add this week? Because I've been allowing you your little moment in the limelight, as long as you don't kill anyone.
Well, I will try not to, but I do have a tiny little bit of musical.
A musical?
A musical.
Oh, I like that. Go on, give us your musical.
Very quickly, no great details about it at all, only that news has just been released that Kevin Bacon, I like Kevin Bacon, has been attached to star in a TV reboot of the movie Tremors.
Awesome.
Which I would very much look forward to.
Awesome. Given how well Ash vs. the Evil Dead seems to have gone,
Absolutely.
Tremors seems to be a no-brainer, I think.
Yes.
And that's what a great idea for an ongoing TV show.
Very much so. And apparently it's been produced by Universal Cable Productions and Blumhouse Productions, and they're going to be touting it round to various TV networks.
Nice.
So, yes.
Will what's his name come back? Is it Fred
Ward?
Fred Ward?
Yes.
Remo?
Yes, indeed. I don't know, but I think Bacon's definitely the one that can greenlight that sort of thing, having his name attached to it. So, yeah, looking forward to see if that happens, and if so, how it's going to be. So,
hopefully Bacon is on the menu.
And that I don't kill him.
Yeah, please don't do that, whatever you do. Right, now, get out.
I'm gone.
Go.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And now we shall move on to this week's Quick Hits.
Quick Hits.
I think it's you first this week.
It is me first, yes.
Good memory, eh?
Yes, well done you.
Oh, no.
Oh. And this week, going back to a piece of news on the Monkey Farm a couple of weeks ago, this is one that's been on my list to do for ages and ages and ages, and I've never got round to it, and it's one we're both going to love, and it's the comic book series Preacher.
Ah, well done.
One of us had to get to it eventually, didn't we?
I'm glad it was you.
So it was published, I think the first issue was at 95 it came out, and ran for 66 issues plus a limited series and about 4 one-shots, written by our friend Garth Ennis.
Our mate.
Indeed. With art by Steve Dillon, certainly throughout the main title anyway. It tells the story of a preacher, believe it or not, by the name of Jesse Custer. And when he was preaching to his congregation, a celestial being that was only known as Genesis came flying down into his church and merged with Jesse. And we later find out that Genesis is the spawn of the unholy union between an angel and a demon.
Oh.
And is effectively, therefore, has the power of both heaven and hell. And it is this very thing that, therefore, God is most afraid of. Knowing that Genesis has broken free and merged with a human being, God effectively leaves heaven and goes on the run.
I think you find I Want to Break Free was Queen and not Genesis.
Hey!
Thanks very much. Thanks very much.
So when this merging takes place between Genesis and Jesse, the congregation are all killed, leaving Jesse alive, so he's effectively on the run to begin with anyway. But what having Genesis inside him gives him is what's referred to throughout the series as the Word of God, which means basically when his eyes flash red and the writing in his speech bubble turns red, it means that he can tell anybody to do whatever he wants them to do, which of course has some fantastic consequences. So the series is effectively Jesse hunting down God, having found out that God has abandoned heaven. Jesse is ably assisted throughout the series by his girlfriend Tulip O'Hare, who's a very kick-ass blonde.
No relation to Bucky O'Hare either.
Indeed, no. Also, his best friend, which is an Irish vampire called Cassidy, who is very much a lovable rogue, but will be buying you a drink with one hand and stabbing you in the back with the other.
Yeah, not one to turn your back on.
Jesse is being hunted all the way through the series by the Saint of Killers, which is basically the angel of death. God has sent him to take out Jesse because he obviously fears Genesis, and he's effectively the resurrection of an old Wild West gunslinger. So he literally looks like an old gunslinger, which is fantastic. And along the way they encounter various different characters. You've got obviously the classic Arseface, which is a guy whose face looks like an arse because he was a big fan of Kurt Cobain and wanted to kill himself like Kurt Cobain, but put the shotgun under his chin and shot up through the front of his face, thus making his face look like an arse. You've also got Herr Starr, who's a German guy who's obsessed with Jesse and wanting to use him for his own gain. He's a member of a group called the Grail, which want to end the world and have their own messiah in place. They also encounter some of Jesse's family, which is his grandma, Miss Marie, and also Jodie and TC, who are two of the nastiest bastards you could ever hope to meet. And it's just a wonderful series. In total, running probably about 75 odd issues, including the mini-series and one-shots. Brutally violent, ever so brutally violent, but in equal parts funny, touching. Just a wonderful, wonderful comic series. It's available in 9 trade paperbacks or 6 oversized sort of omnibus style hard or soft covers. The new TV series from AMC is based on it quite loosely from what we've seen.
Yeah.
But this is one of those comic series, I mean, it's my second favourite of all time behind Starman, which I've spoken about before. But it's one of those series that you have to read. It is so worth it. I'm sure many people out there have read it, but if you haven't, jump on it and give it a go. Great writing, great art. A great example of the comics medium.
Indeed it is. I didn't step in too much there at all because I thought you put that all so brilliantly and eloquently. It is, without a shadow of a doubt, one of the most important pieces of writing, graphic novel wise, comic book wise, of all time.
Absolutely.
It's up there with Watchmen. It is the
Sandman, Watchmen, Preacher, they're all series that should be mentioned in the same sentence, without a doubt.
Every single character in it is so brilliantly rounded, isn't it?
Yes.
And you can well believe that you could bump into these characters in real life.
And there's shocks along the way. There's some stuff I can remember. Obviously, I read it episodically, month by month, and there's some where you just come to the end of an episode and it's just like, holy shit, and you can't wait. And despite being a massive Spider-Man fan, throughout its run, Preacher was always top of my reading pile. Whenever I buy my comics, Preacher was always first.
So, without a shadow of a doubt, that would be one that we would both recommend to all listeners to say that if you haven't read it, you're missing out.
Yes, do it.
You really are missing out.
Just do it. Yep.
Excellent stuff, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. My quick hit this week is one of my favourite films. So I wouldn't say it's a film that I've always loved, but it's a film that I've grown to love over the years. And the reason I'm bringing it up this week is because we've just recently had a Friday the 13th, okay? And now every Friday the 13th, as you probably know, I do watch a Friday the 13th film or something related to it.
Yes.
Now, I watched a really great review by a guy called Cinema Snob for Friday the 13th, Part 6.
Okay.
Which is one of my favourites.
What's the subtitle of that one?
Jason Lives.
Okay.
And this is going to make a bit more sense in a second. This is with Tom Matthews as Tommy Jarvis. I don't know if you know the name Tom Matthews?
No.
Alright, I'm going to ask you another question. What do zombies eat?
Brains.
Why do you think that? Why do they not just eat flesh?
Well, because it's popular to say brains when...
For one reason and one reason alone, sir, and that is the 1985 classic Return of the Living Dead. Okay? This is where the whole brains comes from, because zombies don't eat brains, they just eat anything. They eat flesh. They're flesh eaters. The reason I watched this is because of watching the review, the Cinema Snob review of Tom Matthews. Tom Matthews ably takes one of the lead roles in this, along with James Karen and Clu Gallagher. Return of the Living Dead is kind of Dan O'Bannon's reply to Romero's Night of the Living Dead.
Okay.
Dan O'Bannon famously, had his hand in Night of the Living Dead and Alien, of course, and
yes,
things
indeed.
like that. He directed it. The story is by John A. Russo, who was Romero's writing partner.
Yep.
Okay. It's a very, very silly film.
Yes.
It's a very, very funny film, and it's also a very, very gory film. So it's got all the ingredients that I love in a horror movie. This was kind of midway through the 80s, like in 1985 here, so the same year that Back to the Future came out. So while Marty was time travelling, you had Clu Gallagher, James Karen and Tom Matthews in an abandoned medical warehouse looking at split dogs coming back to life. I mean, with a tagline such as "They're back from the grave and ready to party," it has no bearing on the film whatsoever. I don't even know why they went with that tagline. But you immediately, when you look at the front cover of this, and I vividly remember having the huge like quad poster that I'd got from Select Video, I think it was, or Apollo Video, which was round the back of.
Oh yes,
yep. Remember? I can't remember the name of the road now, but it was kind of where we grew up. It was where I grew up anyway. I remember having this poster and always looking at the poster and just thinking, God, that looks hilarious. And then watching it for the first time in about 1986, 87 it must have been, and just thinking it was petrifying when I first saw it.
Which is funny because to that point you'd seen a lot more gruesome horrors than this.
And I think it was really because the characters in it are kind of, they're a little bit more realistic,
yes,
if you like.
Yes, for this genre.
For this genre. It's just a very lovingly made film. It's got a great midnight graveyard dance scene with very famous, what we're going to refer to as a scream queen, Linnea Quigley, who was in a lot of the 80s horror movies.
Yep.
Who, even with a massively elongated jaw and huge zombified teeth, still looks pretty sexy for my money, I must say. But yeah, it really is the tar man who steals the show in this movie. He's a zombie that's been trapped in a medical waste barrel, and they unwittingly unleash him. And he obviously comes out, and this is where we got our first iteration of brains from. So again, much like Preacher, if you haven't been privy to Return of the Living Dead and you like a good zombie movie, have a look, because it is well worth a ride. It's a very good little picture. It did, unfortunately, spawn a mass of sequels. Return of the Living Dead 2, which was effectively, much like Evil Dead 2, a bigger budget remake of the original. Even with the same actors playing different characters in it, referencing themselves from the first movie.
Weird, okay.
Which is very, very weird and almost very meta, but it still kind of worked. After that, the sequels just got really ridiculous, and I mean ridiculous. But the first and original Return of the Living Dead, a great, great movie. Very, very, very funny. Very, very gory, and still stands up today.
Yeah. Now, funny enough, I know that you are a great PlayStation fan, and obviously do down the Xbox as much as possible. But back in the day, you did have an Xbox 360, and of course, you and I occasionally gamed together on there. And whenever I used to go on there, because of us being friends on there, I would always think of this movie. Because on the Xbox 360, obviously on your gamer tag you had a motto, and your motto was "Send more paramedics."
Well remembered.
Which is a line from this film.
It is, and it is still my motto to this day.
Is it? Oh, okay, it still is on the
4.
PS4. Excellent stuff.
Yep. There you go. Return of the Living Dead. Watch it. It's great.
Lovely. Thank you, sir.
Welcome, welcome, welcome.
And now we shall move on to this week's main topic.
When they got the ball, you know they won't drop it. The Geek-Minded fools discuss the main topic.
Right, for this week's main topic, we are going to talk about Marvel's latest Netflix exclusive TV series. Obviously, they began with Daredevil, but last Friday they released the 13-part series Jessica Jones.
Indeed they did.
Which obviously you and I have binge-watched the shit out of in order to make sure we can talk about it. So we should warn you that there will probably be a few spoilers in this. I'm sure we're going to discuss various plot points and character arcs. So if you haven't watched it and want to, please stop listening now, get on it, and then come back. But yeah, what did you think?
I loved it.
You enjoyed it?
I really, really loved it, I must say. I thought it started a little bit slow, but once it picked up the pace, it got very, very interesting. She's not a character I know a great deal about. I mean, she's not really an old character. See, 2001, I think she was first around. Is that right?
Yes, indeed. Well, thereabouts. I couldn't tell you the exact year, but I'm sure that's
she's about 14, 15 years older than she has a character. But I like the character. I think she is very, very solid as the main character. But I think where it really wins out is by staying very much in that dark corner of the Marvel universe that Daredevil so rightly inhabited.
Yeah. I don't think this would and could have worked as a film, much like Daredevil, and certainly couldn't be a network TV show.
No, indeed,
I'm
glad.
Way too dark, way too gritty, way too violent.
Yeah, I mean, my biggest qualm with it that I had going into it, or my biggest worry, if you will, going into it, was David Tennant. Because the last thing I saw David Tennant in was the Fright Night remake, and quite frankly, it was awful. He was awful. I've never known him as anyone else other than Doctor Who, which I don't even watch. But man, was he good.
He was excellent, wasn't he?
He was awesomely good.
To me, he was the best thing about it.
He was a very good big bad, wasn't he?
He was I mean, we'll just give you a brief overview of what the series is.
Yeah.
You've got Jessica Jones, who is a private investigator based in Hell's Kitchen, New York. And she has superpowers. She effectively has super strength and can jump great heights and what have
jump
you.
Real good.
But she decided against the traditional superhero route and just wants to make a living as a private eye. And as the series is unveiled, you find out that she has a history with a character called Kilgrave, who can control people by basically they do whatever he tells them to do, and he has psychopathic tendencies, so obviously he doesn't use this power for good. And with a supporting cast which includes Luke Cage, who's obviously in the comics Power Man, and Patsy Walker, her best friend, or Trish Walker as she's now known, who is Hellcat in the comics. And it's just her sort of dealing with the various issues and the subplots from her job as a PI. But the plot that runs through it all is this whole Kilgrave business, and you learn about their history and the effect that he's had on her. And
the clever thing it did was it didn't do what a lot of shows in this day and age do. It didn't suffer from that whole villain of the week thing, purely for the fact that we had a villain running all the way through the show, much like Daredevil did with Kingpin.
Yeah.
Had they have gone that route, then this would have been a very different show, because they could have, couldn't they, really, with the, given that she's a PI, there could have been a different case every week. I mean, you do get it does dip in and out of that, I must admit. One of my favourite things about it, I thought, was the fact that, much like all great private eye movies or TV shows, you get that little almost private eye inner monologue voiceover.
But also, I mean, the whole thing is very much in the noir style, isn't it? It's detective noir. Yeah. And what I like is, much like those classic old films of the 40s and 50s, whenever anything's going on and there's a street scene, you always get that music in the background, the very sort of, sort of down-heel, downbeat music, you know, which is very sort of synonymous with these, with film noir. But yes, you've got her monologue as well, so it is very presented in the noir style.
And I like the fact with her monologue, they didn't choose to steer that in any other direction other than whatever the case was that she was kind of working on at the time, or whatever the task at hand was. Yeah. None of the monologue was ever, I really love this guy, or it was just all business, her monologue, and that was a very, very a wise move on their behalf.
She's sort of an emotionally scarred person. You find out a lot more about that, the reasons for that, as the series goes on. But she's very downbeat. She's sort of very enclosed and withdrawn.
Very self-loathing as well, isn't she?
And is a heavy drinker as well. So a real noir detective in every sense.
Every inch the whiskey-sodden gumshoe.
Absolutely. Very much so.
Kristen Ritter, I thought, was absolutely awesome. Because she's not big of stature, is she, at all? She's not what you would refer to as kind of an action heroine, as it were. No. She plays the whole tough as nails PI thing very well. And I really, really, really was amazed at how well they did the superpower kind of thing. Because obviously she's got super strength. She's not invulnerable at all, is she? She's got super, and I love that about the character as well, that she can be knocked out and she can be hurt. But when you see her hitting someone and they fly across the room, it didn't look fake to me. It looked really well done. I don't know how they've done it in this particular instance. I mean, obviously you get that a little bit later on in the season as well with Luke Cage, because he is invulnerable, but does also have this super strength, it would appear, as well. Again, these aren't characters I know a great deal about, but
I'm not sure he has super strength. I think what he has is, because he's a much bigger physical specimen, because of his invulnerability, because his skin is effectively
cannot be pierced, cut, burnt,
and he's strong. Therefore, with his physical prowess, if he punches someone, it is like being punched with a brick.
Yeah, indeed.
And so I don't think he necessarily within this has super strength in the way that it does in the comics.
It's the whole immovable object kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Yes. He was very good as well. The chap playing him, whose name does escape me. What was his name? Who's the actor who plays him? I can't think of his name for the life of me. But he was very, very good. I did like him a lot. Although I'm going to go in with my major qualm now and just get it out of the way. Okay. Too much sex. I thought there was far too much sex. I know that might make me sound a bit prudish, but I get it. They've both got superpowers. I don't need to see them fucking until they're breathless.
I completely agree. And there was too much sex between her and Luke Cage. There was sex between
Simpson and
Patsy Walker and Simpson, who's another character. Yes, I completely agree. There was too much. And you almost feel like they're thinking, because the gloves are off, we're not on network, we can do whatever we like, so let's bung in some sex scenes. And they were completely over the top and unnecessary. Frankly, the scenes you wanted to see were the ones when they flop off each other panting and have a conversation. That's all you need to see. And you saw way too much of it, and I don't think it sounds prudish, because I, for one, find sex scenes in any kind of entertainment format very embarrassing, because to me, they're there for nothing more than titillation. They're completely unnecessary.
They don't further the plot.
Precisely. You don't get characterisation from two people fucking. No. Nothing is moved on with that. So, I completely agree.
Only at one point did I feel it was necessary, and that was the point when I think it was the first time that they're in bed together, and, they are going at it relatively hard, and she says, "Don't worry, I won't break." And he says, "You will." That should have been it. That should have been as much of that as we needed. And then, they should have just carried on. But I think I counted like 4, maybe 5, virtually, 2.5, 3 minute sex scenes. So you don't. Again, people listening to this are going to think that I sound like a prude, but the fact of the matter is, it was no place for it. And the scenes between Simpson and Trish as well were just, what was the point?
Yeah.
What was the point of them?
Funny enough, you haven't asked me what I thought of it. And I think because of the conversation it's going, you're assuming that I really liked it. I thought it was alright.
You just thought it was alright?
The first episode, a lot of what happened in it annoyed me, and I started thinking, do you know what, I'm going to hate this. But then it really drew me in, and I would say probably episodes 3 to 8 were great, and I was really loving it, and I was thinking, this is fantastic. This is just what I wanted. Obviously, unnecessary sex scenes aside. But then it suddenly just took its foot off the gas, and I think, frankly, for a 13-episode series, it was about 3 episodes too long. For the story they told, they could have made it shorter.
I agree.
About 9, 10, 11, with what was going on in episode 9, they could have ended it very quickly, but they dragged it on and dragged it on and dragged it on, and I started to think, oh, God, I'm starting to hate this. I've gone completely the other way. It's starting to annoy me. Now, I'll admit, I'm not a great binge watcher of shows. I'm one of the rare breed that actually likes to watch and read things episodically. Exactly. And because I like variety. If I'm watching the same thing again and again and again, it starts to get stale for me and I want something else. I like watching weekly shows where I can watch 10 shows weekly rather than one show in one sitting. Therefore, I don't know if me starting to get frustrated with it was partly because of that, but also there were some things in there that I just thought were put there as fillers. They were completely unnecessary. Some of them had a very minor payoff. One thing that I didn't understand, and really get what they were going with it was the Kilgrave support group.
Yeah.
Apart from the bit where it turns out that somebody who was going to the meetings turned out to be something to do with Kilgrave, and again, I won't spoil who and what and why. No. I didn't see the point of it. I didn't see the point of why the red-headed neighbour upstairs suddenly became a major plot point after something happened to her brother.
Robin and Reuben.
She was a very
annoying character. She was very poorly written as well.
I know. And also you had the neighbour who was initially the druggie, but with the greatest respect, cleaned up really fucking quickly.
very quickly, and I can tell you from experience, it ain't that quick.
You don't do that. Clean up very quickly, but then they obviously thought, right, what do we do with this guy? Let's give him something to do with the girl robbing from upstairs. And it was just completely unnecessary. And all of their screen time, I'm going, why are you... And this was all episodes 10, 11 and 12. And I'm just going, what are you doing? I don't care about this. I don't care about it. You've shown her to be an absolute dick.
Yeah. Just
because something's happened to her brother doesn't suddenly make her a character that I care about. Get the fuck away. I don't... Them standing next to the sea, which again, the listeners, when you've seen it, you'll understand why they are totally unnecessary. Didn't give a shit. Just move on with it.
They were pointless characters. They really were.
And there was too much of that. There was the Simpson character, who started off as a cop who was used by Kilgrave, suddenly became a romantic interest for Trish, but then went into this weird arc that was never explained.
Well, he would be qualm number 2 for me.
Never explained, never rationalised, suddenly turned into this pill-popping nut job. And why? To what end? We were never told why. We were never... No. That has started to happen more and more, where I thought, just, move on with the main story. The main story is Kilgrave. If they'd have focused on that, they could have finished it in 10 episodes. Let's face it. And again, spoilers. So if you haven't seen it, stop listening now. But in episode 9... they had him in a soundproofed room with an electrified floor that if he started to do anything they didn't want him to, they could electrocute him. Yeah. Surely at that point, you're pretty close to the fucking end. But no, there was 4 episodes after that.
Yeah.
Why? Yep. Why on earth are you dragging that out? To me, you're moving towards the denouement of the whole thing, but yet he gets away and all this other shit starts happening. You're thinking, we don't care about this, get it to a conclusion. And even the conclusion at the end, the big twist at the end, between her and him, it was so... I mean, he even hinted that he knew the twist was coming, but we all knew the twist was there. And therefore, when it almost seemed like, for something that had run for 13 episodes, a really anticlimactic end to the whole...
Just to snap someone's neck, which could have been done 4 episodes previous.
Precisely. And, of course, the problem is, when you've watched something for so long... what you inevitably remember is all the bits that happened at the end. Yeah. So I'm kind of forgetting all the bits that happened in episodes 3 to 8 that I love, because all I'm focusing is that last fucking dreadful 5 episodes, the stories of which could have been pushed down into 2. Yeah. So that's 2.5 hours of my life that I'm never going to get back, that I sat watching characters I didn't give a shit about getting their own silly little story arcs and subplots and just ridiculous things. I mean, but also, even early episodes, episode 4, which is when she was hired by a woman who said that her husband was cheating on her.
That's right.
And Jessica, throughout the whole episode, was saying, I don't know if this woman's been Kilgrave. She even followed this woman and saw her practicing shooting a gun. Yeah. When she finally follows the husband, the wife rings her to say, oh, have you found him? Are you there? And she realises the wife's in the room with him.
Yeah,
she
then
goes in and they've set her up. And the reason the wife has set her up is that the wife's mother was killed in the invasion on New York in Avengers Assemble. Yeah. So this woman's mother was killed as a building collapsed by the Avengers. Why is she choosing to take it out on this one person? Yeah. It didn't make any sense at all. It was just absolutely ludicrous. And unfortunately, these are the things now that I'm looking back on this TV series and focusing on. Yeah. And which is what I'm saying. And then, don't get me wrong, there were some bits in this show I loved, and I thought Cage was done really well. Jessica was done really well. Trish, Simpson, boring. Kilgrave, fantastic. As I say, I thought David Tennant, I was worried about how well he could pull off a bad guy like this.
So was I.
He was immense. He was amazing. He played a psychopath, somebody who basically people were puppets to him, and he treats them like that. They were toys. He can dispose of them at will. Yeah. And he played it amazing. It was brilliantly written. It was brilliantly performed. Unfortunately, there was so much around it that was trash and unnecessary that is my override. So parts of it I really loved, but enough of it it just annoyed me so much that I'm going to have to say I thought as a series it was alright, but it could have been so much better. And funnily enough, after I watched it, I thought, is it just me? And I've gone online and I've seen there's an awful lot of sites have said best thing Marvel have done ever, 5 stars, but there's an awful lot of people saying it's a mess, it doesn't make sense, it's poorly scripted, 2 out of 5 and that sort of thing. So it really has seemed to sort of split the geek community in terms of, whether people loved it or not.
For me, the biggest qualm, as I said a second ago, qualm number 2 would be Will Travel, who was Will Simpson, because I just thought, what a shit character. He's apparently supposed to be a character from the books called Nuke.
Oh, really?
That's who he's based on, yeah.
Which is a Daredevil character.
So, is he a Daredevil villain?
Yes.
Okay,
yes,
so
yeah.
so he is. It looks like he's being set up to become him.
Right. Okay.
But I just thought he was so unbelievable.
And also, I have to say, really badly acted.
He's awful, isn't he?
He was terrible.
Absolutely
he was really bad.
Awful.
Now, you could
for someone's hairstyle to act them off the screen. Honestly, he was just fucking terrible.
But, you could understand the cop thing, of him being taken. But everything that the character did, was he really special forces previously? What's this whole thing with the pills and the turning into a complete nut job?
We'll never know because they didn't fucking tell us, did they?
I need to be saved. I'm back in. No, I'm back out again. No, I'm still popping these pills. Oh, now Trishy's popping me pills. And it's all just like, oh, for fuck's sake. In some places it was just a jumble, and I just felt like they came up with a story and they thought, right, Daredevil did well as 10 episodes, I think we can get 13 out of this.
They shouldn't have pushed it.
And they filled 13 episodes rather than saying, right, we've got a story and this story should only take 10 or even 8, and therefore let's have 8 good episodes, or 8 great episodes. But they decided, and like I say, some of the stuff in there, the druggy neighbour, fuck me.
He was not great either, was he? Acting wise, it wasn't a great performance. That's a chap called Ika Darville as Malcolm Ducasse, and not that you ever get to know his surname.
Who ends up almost seemingly being like her secretary or something, working with.
Well, he's walking away, isn't he? Virtually at the end,
but
he's
then
like,
doesn't.
"You guys, I'm fucking done with you." And then he's like, "Oh, hang on a second.
Hang on a minute.
These are all still mental. She's fucking brilliant. I'll answer the phone."
Indeed, it was bizarre.
One of the biggest confusions for me, again, was pertaining to Will Simpson. There's a moment where he is staking out what we find out to be Jessica's childhood home.
Yes.
And he's openly saying to Trish on the phone, no, there's no sign of him. And he's looking at Kilgrave. That was never explained as to why he's lying to her that he's got eyes on her.
So much wasn't. Only that it's teeing up the fact that they wanted to take Kilgrave alive and he just wanted to kill him. Now, whether he wanted to kill him because he'd been controlled by him, but of course everybody had been by that point.
Yeah.
Or was it simply the fact that they wanted to slowly peel away this facade of him being the victim cop to him being Trish's shag to him being a bit psychotic and a bit of a nasty piece of work, and whether that was just them saying, oh look, he isn't the good guy we all think he is because he's lying to Trish.
It was too much of an unbelievable character arc for one man to go through in such a short space of time.
Ridiculous.
But while we're on the subject of subplots, I have to say I thought the Carrie-Anne Moss and Robin Wiegert as her ex-wife subplot was...
Calamity Jane.
It is Calamity Jane from...
Deadwood,
yeah. I thought that was brilliant, and I thought that was well placed, and I thought it was a clever way to kind of almost explain the dynamic between Hogarth and Jessica Jones. I thought that was really, really well done. I absolutely loved the scene in the subway.
Yes.
I thought that was brilliant. For one reason, and it was the whole, I didn't mean to do that.
Exactly.
Because she's a drunk, isn't she?
She was pissed and she was angry because of what had happened with Luke, and she took it out on somebody else.
Yeah.
So what it's trying to do is show that, Jessica's trying to do the right thing, but she's by no means perfect, and also not really a hero.
No, and very much an anti-hero, which I do like an anti-hero, I must admit.
It's interesting you say that, because that whole subplot was something that also annoyed me, because I felt it was overused. There was too many scenes of her and her, obviously, PA / new girlfriend, with her saying, oh, we're going to do this. No, you have to get divorced first. Oh, will you marry me? Well, maybe, but you have to get divorced. And it was just dragging it out. And I felt the only real payoff was obviously Kilgrave getting Hogarth to take her to get patched up. And of course, the inevitable battle that took place in there.
Which was the first, really, of two double bluffs.
Death by 1,000 cuts sort of thing.
Which was very good.
Yes, that was well done. But then the whole thing with then the PA getting arrested and it sort of didn't really have a payoff. It almost sort of just petered off to nothing. And I felt there was too much of that. There was too much of things being established that you think are going to have a big payoff, but then they end up having a very small payoff and therefore just peter off into nothing. And I felt that kind of represented the series. If they'd have focused more on the main plot, had a couple of subplots running alongside it that would eventually pay off as part of the main plot, and run it for 10 episodes, I'd be more than happy. But they were throwing so much in there, it just ended up being an exercise in me going,
What's going on?
What happened there? Why did they end up doing that? Because there was nothing at the end of it. It was just frustration.
Of the subplots from the show, I think that was the best handled one. I think probably because Carrie-Anne Moss, I think, is just fabulous. I think she's a brilliant actor.
Handled reasonably well, but overused.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. I mean, Carrie-Anne Moss and Robin Wiegert were absolutely brilliant. I didn't think much of the actress playing Pam.
No, she was terrible.
She was... obvious why she was hired.
I didn't buy it. Yes, indeed.
But she just wasn't great at all, was she? On the whole, it's nowhere near as successful in my mind as Daredevil.
No,
and I don't understand why reviews are saying, this is the best thing Marvel have ever done. It's certainly not. But I think it could well go on to become a really, really tight little show if they lock down this whole elongation of plot thing, which seems to have been a terrible problem.
Well, funny enough, with the whole, obviously, the end result of all this is going to be the Defenders, isn't
Of course,
it?
yeah, with
and of
Luke
course,
Cage and Iron Fist.
Yeah, well, it's been rumoured that Iron Fist's show wasn't actually going to go ahead, that they canned Iron Fist's show.
Yeah.
Because, of course, we still got the Luke Cage show to come.
Indeed, which is next year, isn't it?
Yes. But yeah, somebody said Iron Fist isn't happening, but then Jeff Loeb, who obviously executive produced all this, came out and said, no, that is still happening. But my thing is, within the Defenders, because she is this very downbeat, dour, as you say, gumshoe, where does Jessica Jones fit into a superhero team? To me, that doesn't fit. And whether she's just going to be there as Luke Cage's squeeze, I don't know. But that seemed like an odd thing. But yeah, I would say that whereas Daredevil played like a 10-part film, this very much felt like a TV series, far more than Daredevil did.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree.
But I do have to say, talking about Luke Cage's character, his wife, Reva, having this USB stick that had footage
of the experiments
of the experiments on various children, not just... And that was why she was, there was a connection between Jessica and Luke Cage, and she ended up being the one killing Luke Cage's wife. It was never explained how Reva had this. What was she? Why was she part of it? Why was she able to bury this thing in the foundations of a new building and give him directions to where to get it from? Never explained.
Was she one of the kids being experimented on? Because there is a bit of footage.
Know.
There was a bit of footage that did show a young black teenage girl.
But then,
that's a reach, isn't it?
How would she get hold of the footage? It was never explained, and there was so much stuff like that. There was so much stuff that it seemed like it was being teed up as something, and it was then just swept under the carpet. Oh, forget that. Don't look at the man behind the curtain, kind of thing. It was,
don't look in the eyes. Don't look around the eyes. Look in the eyes. That sort of thing. As I say, I thought it was very, very lovingly made. I thought if they'd have kind of pared it down a bit with, the overuse of subplots and the overuse of things that just didn't really need to be there, it would have been a much tighter show.
Absolutely.
That being said, there were some really good little nods in there to other properties as well. It's like, we had a couple of mentions to the big green guy and his team, as it were. But I think one of my favourite ones, which I didn't notice, and I genuinely didn't notice, and I had to go back this morning before I left to watch it again.
Oh, okay.
Just because I was very interested. In episode 3, when she goes into a convenience store and there's a radio playing.
Yes.
And she says to the guy, were you trying to get everyone to... Yeah?
Yes.
Did you know that was on the radio?
No,
that's J.K. Simmons.
Oh, okay.
I thought that was really quite cool. He's basically ringing him for a rant, and he's saying he's calling from Westchester, which is obviously where Xavier's mansion is.
Yes.
Which I think that's nice that they've linked little things like that in. Which, they're always going to do that, aren't they?
Now, of course... One cameo we haven't mentioned is the lovely Rosario Dawson.
We're leaving her till last because she is one of the most fabulously beautiful women on the planet, and I love that character.
As the night nurse. But funny enough, the way that it played out, I kind of got the feeling that this was running before Daredevil. Because there was an awful lot of mention, because of Carrie-Anne Moss's character, of law firms.
Yeah.
There was no mention of any other than the big green guy and the guy with the shield or whatever, however they described it. No mention of this other vigilante about the place who there are. And I thought maybe this predates Daredevil and maybe this is all leading together. But then, of course, having Rosario Dawson at the end and her saying, "Oh, there's this guy that I do, and he's the same. He blames himself for everything, so on and so forth," means clearly this has either been running concurrently or maybe even after Daredevil.
I think it's actually supposed to be set after, from what I've read.
In which case, why no mention of another costume vigilante. What surely within her, for the fact that she's in Hell's Kitchen as well, she's in the same place where Daredevil operates. No mention of Wilson Fisk. No mention of Daredevil, considering it was quite lawyer heavy, and Daredevil had
no mention of Matt Murdock.
Two big legal companies, both Nelson and Murdoch, and obviously the big one as well. No mention of any of this, and I thought that was a good opportunity to have a bit of it, at least mention it, at least name check it. But it was almost like in this universe, Daredevil hadn't happened at all, which was odd. Considering, as you say, the feeling is that this is set after Daredevil.
Yeah.
And certainly Rosario Dawson's appearance would seem to suggest that. So that was another thing that made me go, hang on a minute. If you're supposedly tying these all together in a Defenders, at least mention the guy. There's a guy running around your part of town beating people up in a red and black costume.
No mention of it whatsoever.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think if we'd said one thing about the show is that the writing was a little mixed up on it. There should have been more reference to existing characters. Purely for the fact that, if you've got two, what are we going to call them? What do they call them in this? Gifted or specials, running around together, Luke Cage and Jessica Jones, surely they would discuss the others a little bit more. But you're right, they didn't, did they? So that kind of was a bit of a letdown.
It almost seems funny that, and whether they're doing it deliberately because they're thinking, well, people wouldn't say that in the real world, but obviously we look at cartoon characters and say, well, this person has superpowers and this person has superpowers. And yet that word, as you say, it's all, oh, I'm gifted, or are you special? Not do you have superpowers? It's weird that they're almost deliberately staying away from that in the way that obviously, they have to call mutants enhanced because they can't call them mutants because Fox owns the rights. So some of it felt a bit forced.
Yes. I mean, I don't think by any means that it was absolute outright shit.
No, it
wasn't.
wasn't.
I don't think it was anywhere near as successful in my eyes as Daredevil was.
Definitely.
I mean, whether or not it's the fact that I've got a little bit more love in my heart for the Daredevil character and not knowing enough about Jessica Jones, I don't think that is the reason. I just think in places it was poorly written.
I bought the Jessica Jones series. I was a big Brian Michael Bendis fan back in the day, and bought everything he was writing, and so I had the complete 28-issue run of Alias, which was obviously the Jessica Jones series. And Kilgrave was in that, but not as a main character like this. He appeared in about a 4 or 5 issue arc.
He's the Purple Man, right?
The Purple Man, yes, who is literally purple in the comics. Okay. His skin is purple, and they obviously went away from that. Although there was a few times where when she thought about him, there would be a purple light on her hair or something. But so I enjoyed the character and loved it. So obviously not as much as I love Daredevil, but I wouldn't say that is what made me not love this as much as Daredevil. To me, this was just, as a TV show, regardless of it being about a superpowered person or not, it was flawed. It was overlong. It had subplots that went nowhere. It had unnecessary characters. I felt it just didn't do what I wanted it to do in the way that Daredevil did.
I think that the biggest irony for me is my biggest worry about the show going in ended up being my favourite thing about it, which was David Tennant.
Name 6 characters from the Daredevil TV show.
Foggy, Matt, Claire, Karen, Kingpin, and I want to say the old Oriental lady, but I can't think of her name.
You could say Stick. Beyond that, you probably couldn't think of that many.
No.
If I was to ask you to name 12 characters from Jessica Jones, you'd easily be able to do so. And therefore, Daredevil...
Character overload.
Yeah, Daredevil got away with the minimum of character, just focusing on those characters carrying the plot on. This one just seemed to throw character after character.
Yeah. You needed no Robin, you needed no Rubin, you didn't need Malcolm, you didn't really need Pam.
You had a lesbian love triangle, for God's sake. That's 3 characters straight in there. There was so many characters involved.
Did you have a favourite moment from the show? Because I know I definitely did.
There was definitely a few Kilgrave bits that I mean, one of my favourite bits would have definitely been a Kilgrave moment. Him doing something really nasty to someone.
My favourite.
Those were the bits.
Favourite scene in the whole, and this is across all episodes. I think the best scene in the whole show was him turning up on the guy's doorstep and saying, "Oh, hello, I'm going to be your house guest."
Yes.
It was just the moment with the children that I thought was really chilling. Yeah. Like children should be seen and not heard. Yeah. Get in the cupboard. I need the toilet. But do it in the cupboard.
And you just see the wee come out under the door.
Brilliantly done.
But one thing I did like was when he brought Jessica's childhood home.
Yeah.
And he actually turned up and was about to use the voice to say, "You're going to sell me your house," and almost sort of leant in to say it, and they went, took a breath, stepped back, and then just said, "Look,
I want it to be all above board.
Yes, this is worth $600,000. Here's $1.2 million. I will give you this for this house. So the guy does it anyway, and he realises, look, I got the money here. I don't need to make him do it. He will do it for twice the market value. And that was a good moment as well. Him realising that he didn't have to use the voice all the time. So.
I'd have liked to have seen more, if I'm honest, of Kilgrave, because I think he's a really, really cleverly done character, a really cleverly written character. I'll finish here on this moment, which is my second favourite moment of the whole show, which was a very, very throwaway line from Kilgrave. It's when Jessica does kind of end up cohabiting with him, and she suggests they go out for a ride because he wants to turn him into a hero, doesn't she? It's just what he says to the two housekeepers. If we're not back in 2 hours,
cut each other's faces
off.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
But this is it. He didn't care about people. But you can understand, I mean, we've spoken about having God complexes before, but when you can make anybody do whatever you want them to, they become like ants to you. That they aren't people, they are playthings. And that came across very strongly. So, a TV show, some very good moments, but overall, for me, really frustrating. And I would say, as an overall experience, I would say it was all right. Interesting to see how they're going to use this to spin off into more, obviously, the Luke Cage and the Defenders TV series. But
will it get a second season?
Certainly from the response, I would imagine so. But then the trouble is, if you're building towards Defenders, are you going to keep going with every year a Daredevil TV series and a Jessica Jones and a Defenders and a Luke Cage? Or is that just going to end up being overkill? Because the trouble is you don't want to bore people with the main characters. You almost want to do this to build up a Defenders team, and then if I was them, I would just run with the Defenders team and have all of them. I wouldn't keep going back for Daredevil, Jessica Jones and stuff like that. Have their subplots within the Defenders TV show, but that's what they should be building towards.
Because we definitely get season 2 of Daredevil, obviously. We know that's in the offing. For my money, exactly what you've just said. 1 season of Jessica Jones, 1 season of Luke Cage. We need a second season of Daredevil because that's such a big, it's a big character to deal with, Daredevil and Kingpin, and then spin it out into the Defenders with Iron Fist coming in and then see where it goes from there. So I mean, as you've just said, while it was relatively effective, it wasn't overly memorable.
No,
there we
absolutely. Is that all you have, sir?
That's all I have.
Good work. Right, well, that's it for this episode. So, for myself, Graham.
And myself, Scott.
Thanks very much for listening, and we'll see you next time.
And if you're still listening, tear off your faces.